All right, Beaches. Change of plans, as it turns out.
Good morning, my lovelies. Another week, another author curriculum week. So let us go ahead and dive straight into what we're going to be working on this week, because we actually do have some pretty exciting things that we're going to be working on this week. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. So for creative writing, as I mentioned last week at the end of last week's video, I was in a little bit of a rut with Project DDD, and I think my solution is that I need to rework the first basically 18 scenes. I wasn't loving the way that they were looking. Like, it just wasn't flowing the way I wanted it to. It wasn't paced the way I wanted it to. The kind of inciting sort of incident was falling a lot further down than I wanted it to, because like the point at which the love interests start hanging out more often, and that was closer to like the midway point. It wasn't flowing the way I wanted it to, bottom line. So I decided that because of that, I'm basically going to go back and not completely rewrite it, but I'm basically going to just kind of reshuffle how things fall in the plot line, and therefore have to go back and like rework some things so that it now falls in the correct order, if that makes sense. So instead of focusing on word count this week, we're going to focus on just making sure those first, I'm doing it this way just so I can, make sure I take my time. If there's anything I need to, add or subtract or whatever of the actual plot, then that's what I'm going to do as well. But I wanted to focus on the first 6 scenes this week, so that way, I can get those done moving forward. For editing, I did receive, as of last night, beta feedback from one of my readers, so very happy about that. And we'll talk more about that in that section, but I did receive more feedback from her, so I do have a little bit better window as to what things I might want to change in the story, which honestly, it sounds like the story is pretty decent, which I'm very, very happy about. But again, I don't want to talk too much about it now. But for this week, we're going to be working on starting the story edits of Twisting Fates. So that's what we're going to be working on in that section. Classic Lit, yes. Same thing as the past couple of weeks. I am really struggling with just getting into the reading mood. It's not because I'm like, oh, I have an issue with this. I just have not had the desire to listen or to read anything recently, regardless of everything else. Like, I have not been in the mood to read anything. So we're going to keep with this one. I am at chapter 77 right now as of recording this. So I am almost at the finish line of actually completing this cycle of things. So I'm really going to try to make the push this week so that I can get that started. And then for reading with my buddy, J.M. Hollis, who, shout out to her. She's fantastic. She's also one of my critique partners right now. Absolutely love her. I'm supposed to be reading the Jasad Heir with her right now, and I have been falling behind very significantly on that because I just have not been, as I said, in a reading mood. So we're going to try to remedy that this week, and with tying in with some of the other like health and wellness stuff, we're going to focus on doing things that fulfill my creative well this week. So that's going to be one of them, is reading, or at least starting to read the Jasad Heir. For communications, we're going to do our typical, complete the platform specific action plans. I might talk a little bit, again, this is very highly dependent, because as of recording this and as of you guys watching this, because obviously when you guys see it and when I'm recording it are 2 different times. So I'm recording this on the 11th. So yes, this is technically Tuesday. So I'm recording this on a Tuesday on the 11th of November. When you guys are seeing this, it's going to be the 28th of November, I think, if that's how I calculated my posting up. So we're going to be well into the future of publishing the pen name project. So I wanted to put a little shout out in here because, and I'm going to try to fit something in the previous video. Hopefully you guys will have seen that, but the pen name project will have been out by the time this is recording, and I want to talk a little bit because, again, it's kind of complicated with times and stuff like that because, like I just said, when you guys are seeing this versus when I'm recording it are 2 different times. So obviously that means for me, next week is when the book actually comes out. For you guys, the book is already out. So I'm going to talk probably a little bit as I'm going through the process of like finalizing things and that kind of thing. So, and I'll fit that into the communications section just so it's in a different section so we can have something to work on. So that's for that. For health and wellness, we're going to really focus and hone in on this week. I really would love to do, again, I've got the continuing the morning and the night routine, but as a part of that, I really want to focus in on the nutrition because I've been, again, like I mentioned before, slacking on that. So I really want to focus on that and get that more squared away than it has been. So we've got that. And for sculpting, yes, same thing as usual. We're going to try to work on some charms this week. And that's the thing. I really do enjoy working on the charms. It's just by the time I get done with everything else, I just never have time to do stuff like that. So we're going to try, no guarantees, we're going to try to squeeze that in for this week. If not, obviously, it is what it is. But I would love to get some playtime with that just because I do find it fun. And if I don't do the sculpting this week, I will show you something else creative wise that I have been working on. And it is more tied in with like the book release and stuff like that. But it is more of a creative sort of thing that I have been working on. So if I don't do the sculpting, I will show you the other thing that I've been working on. So that is what we have going on for this week. And yeah, let's get going and see how this week pans out. All right. So let's chat about what all I'm doing, where I'm at right now. Because again, as I just mentioned in the last section, this is Tuesday. We're just basically continuing on. So today is Tuesday. At the end of last week, what I did with Project DDD is I went through all of the scenes I have already written. And I basically looked at because when I write a scene, I have like a little, because I use Scrivener, I have like a little description of like what is going on in the scene. So that way visually, when I'm looking at like the scene cards on the side, I can see visually what each scene is. I basically went through all of it and I looked at what I wanted, or basically, how do I put it? I had gone through all of the scenes and I had already labeled which scenes I wasn't sure about, like which scenes I just wasn't sure if this was the right place for it and that kind of thing. So I basically went through and like renumbered everything. So I went through and I renumbered 1 through, I think it's like 18 scenes. So I went through all 18 scenes and I renumbered them based on where I would ideally like them to be. And then I reviewed all of that. And then I actually physically moved all of the scenes into that specific order. So based off of that, Hi, what's the matter? You feeling needy right now? Yeah. Okay. We're feeling needy right now. Okay, you want to sit here? Okay. So needy. So, very needy cat this morning. You want to say hi? Yeah. So basically I went through all of those scenes and I decided the order. So what I've been doing since then, what, baby? Okay, you want to go back down? Make up your mind. So since then, what I've been doing is on Monday, yesterday, I went through all of those scenes, reordered everything, and I basically combined the first 2 scenes that I'd written. I already had those scenes labeled and flagged from pretty early on of like, I think I already know that I want to combine these scenes because it's just too much exposition, that kind of thing right off the bat. So that's what I worked on all day yesterday, was combining those 2 scenes, condensing it down, and trying to make that first scene more impactful, if that makes sense. So at the end of that, what I did was I sent it over to one of my current critique partners, J.M. Hollis, who, shout out to her, she's fantastic. So I sent that over to her. She and I have been working on our projects together for this particular run. So I basically sent over the first scene and was like, hey, I rewrote this entire first scene. Can you just take a look at it and let me know if it's better paced? Because right now my goal is to make sure it's better paced so that way it's more concise. I definitely already know, even with what I've done and, talking with her about it, I already know that there's more changes that I want to make for that, because as you guys probably already know, if you're writers, even if you're a reader, the first chapter of a book tends to be the most important in terms of whether a reader continues the book or puts it down. And I tend to stress out a lot about that. And the reason that, well, not the reason, but like when I wrote Pen Name Project, the first scene, the first chapter I redid several times because I just wasn't happy with it. I'm happy with it now, but like, it just wasn't happy with it. With Twisting Fates, I knew exactly what I wanted for that opening scene, and I think it nails it pretty well. And based off of the beta reader feedback that I've gotten so far, people have seemed to really enjoy that first chapter. So that one was the easiest, ironically. And then now I'm back to writing the struggle bus with this first chapter scene for Project DDD. So I'm definitely going to have to come back and work on it and try to like make it more impactful and like hooks people more, because I feel like it still doesn't like quite hook people enough. So that's something I've got to review, but that's what I've been doing. So all of what I've been doing so far has been combining those two scenes and condensing it down into one, and then basically making some tweaks to it based off of the feedback from my critique partner. Going forward for today, because again, today is Tuesday. So going forward for today, I'm going to continue working on like reworking some of the scenes, because it's not necessarily that I have to redo them. It's just because of the order they were in, they're obviously going to be details and stuff like that that just don't make sense and don't align with where they currently rest. So now I'm going to go back and work on getting those scenes to align more smoothly, if that makes sense. And because of the change of order, there are like, I think 2 scenes that I hadn't written yet, but I was about to start writing that got bumped up further in the timeline. So I've also got to work on those. But for now, I'm going to be focusing on adjusting what I currently have already written for it to make sense in the timeline that I've moved it to. So that's what I'm going to work on now. And I guess we'll hop to that, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on everything at the end of the video on how I think I did this week for moving everything around. So let's go.
Okay, Beaches. Change of plans as it turns out. So when I originally was making up this whole plan for this week on what I was going to work on and focus on, my focus was like, okay, well, I'm still waiting for some beta feedback, and you know, I definitely need to redo some stuff with Project DDD. So it was a little bit of a focus more towards the writing and all that kind of stuff. Howsoever, after getting beta reader feedback, my entire purpose, my entire goal for this week has dramatically shifted, because I don't need as much story edits as I feared I would, which is a really good thing, which really tells me that the edits that I made during my writing process and all that stuff were effective. It means that things went a lot more smoothly than I had feared that they would. So that is a really, really, really good thing. Howsoever, that also means now my timelines towards actually sending my book to my editor has now shifted. So I've already talked with her, and my goal now is to send her this draft, or the updated draft of Twisting Fates, by the end of next week. So what does that mean? That means I need to start implementing these little bits of feedback that I got from my beta readers, some line edits. I'm not going to go too crazy because, again, I have an editor who's going to help me with some of that. And I absolutely love my editor, because she does kind of like this bundle where she does copy editing, proofreading, and she does some like very light developmental edits along the way if I need it, which, you know, she did it with Pen Name Project. I don't know if she's going to find anything with Twisting Fates. She might, I don't know. But she'll do some like very light commentary kind of thing on if there's any developmental feedback that she has. So she kind of bundles all that up, and I pay the price for all of that together, which fantastic. Love it. So again, what that means for me for the rest of this week is I need to start going through and just not rushing. How do I put it other than rushing? Because it is a little rushing, but it's not rushing, because I just need to really hone in and start implementing the little bits of story feedback that I have, and just kind of do some minor line editing to clean things up a little bit so that I can then send it to her for editing. So that is going to be the new focus for the rest of this week. Everything else, basically scratch that. The entire plan of all the other stuff I was going to do this week, all of my focus is now going to be on this. I will still, because I'd already planned on doing this, I will still do some writing with Project DDD. I'll probably save that for the weekend though. That is still something I do plan to do, but everything else on the docket that I have is now taking the biggest backseat to this. So with that said, we're now going to progress to this next section of the video where I'm going to be working on edits for Twisting Fate. So let's get going. Okay, so day one of actually starting the edits for Twisting Fates. I think day one I've done a really good job because it is late at night now and I'm on chapter 12 right now. So 12 chapters in one day. I'm not going to complain about that, especially because I'm trying to get it ready for next week to send it to my editor. So 12 chapters in a day is pretty good for me. So I'm going to kick back for the rest of the night for a few minutes at least, the little time I have left. And then we will continue on, and fingers crossed I can get everything done tomorrow, but realistically, at least by the end of the week. If my trajectory for today has gone as smoothly as it has, I might be able to do it tomorrow, going into this weekend, and finish it and get it ready for next week. So fingers crossed, but for now, bed. All right, it is Friday morning, technically, so I didn't get to update you guys last night after what I did yesterday, but I am now currently on, 21. So I'm on chapter 21. We're up to, and I can't talk today. It's early. I'm tired. To finish this, quick line edit, quick update with the story stuff, I have chapter 35 to get to, so we still have a little bit of ways to go, obviously. So I'm going to try and get as much done as I can later today and see how that goes. If I can't, I'll move it into the weekend. But today is typically my scheduled social media planning and scheduling and all that kind of stuff, which I've tried to do that earlier over the past weekend so that I didn't have to worry about it as much, which because next week is the release officially of the pen name project, I already had a lot of it kind of planned out of what I was going to start post for next week. So I don't have to focus and worry as much about that, but I still have some stuff I have to do with that. So either I'll try to get some of that done today or I'll push that part off until the later part of the weekend and see if I can get this stuff done. But honestly, we're making really great progress. I've already actually contacted my cover designer who I actually worked with for the pen name project's cover, and she's already, accepted working with me again, which I'm super excited about. And she and I are going to start chit-chatting about the cover for this book in December, at the start of December. So that's really exciting. Yay for that. We're making progress. So this book might actually get published a lot sooner than I originally anticipated. When I was kind of giving a general estimate in my head, I hadn't really been okay, well, this book is going to come out on this particular time. And I was just kind of sometime early next year, at some point in the beginning parts of next year in 2026. But I hadn't really nailed down okay, these are the specific, times or whatnot. But my thought now, and again, do not hold me to this because obviously things change and this is all very highly dependent upon how edits go, how things with my cover designer go, copywriting, all that kind of stuff. But if by the very end of December, if I'm able to get the copyright submitted, all that kind of stuff, everything's ready to go by the end of December, my thought is that I might be able to get Twisting Fates out by April of next year, which would be fantastic. Would be really exciting. However, again, do not hold me to that because that all highly depends. Once you start getting to the phases of writing a book where it's not just dependent on you, that's where the timeline gets a little bit fuzzy because I can control how quickly I do things to a certain extent. I can't control what other people do for that kind of thing. I know my editor has a typical timeline on, how long, and she's already given me an estimate of how long it's going to take to, edit this book. So I have a general estimate, but again, my editor also does other things. She works with other clients. She also works outside of just editing. So like she's got a full schedule. My cover designer works with other clients. I have to adhere to her schedule as well. So like there's more factors than just my schedule and what, that kind of thing, if that makes sense. So would love for that to happen. However, we'll have to see. But as of like working on this and like, thinking about this stuff, it's like, oh, that would be really exciting if by April I can get this out. That would be really, really exciting because April, backing up just slightly. So this book is about storm chasers falling in love. I've mentioned that before during a tornado documentary. So that's kind of the main concept of the book. And if you're familiar at all with like nature documentaries, tornado stuff in the United States, you know that spring is usually when tornado season is active. It would be kind of cool if, I was able to get this book out by spring, if that makes sense. So that's just kind of like that would be kind of a fun little thing if that were possible. But again, it all highly depends on everything else. So for today, we're going to try to work on getting these edits done. I'm going to do probably another quick scan because my editor's really, again, she's going to be doing a bundle. So it's not just like one thing. So she's going to be doing a sweep for a bunch of different things. So I don't have to be as super tight knit as I would necessarily have to be if it was going for just one type of editing, if that makes sense. But with that said, I still want to do, after I finish this bigger sweep of notes and stuff like that of things I need to fix, I want to still do like another general like quick read through just to kind of pick and make sure things like look smooth, if that makes sense. So that's the current goal. If I can get that done by the end of this week, that would be fantastic. That's the absolute goal so that I can get it to her by sometime next week, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm tired. I'm still working through my coffee. I need help. Send help. My last brain cell is dying. It's starving. A brain-eating bacteria would starve in my mind right now. So that's all I have for you for now. So let's continue on with the edits for Twisting Fates.
A few moments later.
All right. It is currently Saturday morning. I didn't get a chance to film last night because we went out to dinner then. And we also have a friend's birthday that we're going to later today. So I'm going to keep this section relatively short. So we were able to get a good amount of editing done before I had to leave for last night, basically. So we're up to, I think, chapter 30, basically. So we're at chapter 30, which means we only have 5 chapters left to edit for the rest of this for right now. So we are going to work on that tomorrow if need be, but I really think I'll be able to knock it out today, if I'm honest. Hopeful. Cross fingers. With that said, we don't know for sure, but I'm really excited because I mentioned, I think yesterday, that I've already started talking to my cover designer and all that kind of stuff, and she's already sent me like the contract and she sends like a little questionnaire so she gets a better idea when it is time for us to start working together. She gets a better idea of exactly what all I'm thinking and what all I'm looking for. So I'm really excited about that. I started filling it out last night and I started like editing the blurb for the book because I already had the blurb ready, so to speak, but I wanted to make sure it's like the final version of the blurb so I can send that to her. So I worked on that a tiny bit last night as well, so that I could have that updated for her on my questionnaire and whatnot. And I'm trying to figure out, and you guys let me know in the comments what you think. I'm trying to figure out when exactly to like show the blurb for Twisting Fates. Cause like we've talked. Cat Highway. Excuse me. If you're gonna come across the highway, you have to pay the tax. You have to pay the tax. I just work here. So, what was I saying? What was I saying? Oh my God. See, this is what happens is I'll be in the middle of a thought, get distracted, completely forget what I was saying. I was talking about the blurb. I know that part. But exactly what was I saying? Well, damn it, what was I talking? This is embarrassing. Oh, okay. With the blurb, I'm trying to figure out, now that I have, my brain cell has come back to me, I'm trying to figure out when exactly to start more openly talking about the blurb for the book. Because again, you guys have seen the process of me writing it and stuff like that. And I've talked a little bit here and there about like what the story is about. But I'm still trying to figure out like how much to talk about the actual story, how much to, so, you know, obviously the blurb will come at some point, but I just got to figure out like when to announce the blurb kind of thing. So I haven't figured that out. It is now, as of sending my or like the questionnaire back to her this morning, the blurb is ready. It's just more of like figuring out when to announce it. Because in terms of like market, like with Pen Name Project, it's been a lot of like guessing and figuring out like, you know, oh, I think I need to do this at this time and all this other stuff. But I haven't figured out like the exact timeline to like talk about things, if that makes sense. Because there is no, as much as I wish, and again, I'm a type A person, I wish there was some sort of like 100% checklist, which again, it's dependent on each author, blah, blah, blah. But like, if there was a sort of checklist on like, okay, at this point you need to do this, and at this point you need to do this, and this is when you need to do, that would be fantastic, because I'm still trying to figure out when to do certain things in this process. And the thing with Twisting Fates is that I'm going into the last parts of the book more quickly than I kind of thought I was going to, because the beta read went much more smoothly than I thought it was. Like when you send stuff off to beta readers, you're usually expecting some, especially for like a story edit or whatnot, you're kind of expecting to, you know, you're going to have to do a little bit more playing around with the story and that kind of thing before you start finalizing like the line edits and that kind of thing. But I didn't really have as much feedback on that. And I guess it was because I'd already done a good amount of story edits before I'd sent it off to them. So I don't know for sure. And again, my editor, she is fantastic. And we kind of do a bundle, and she does some light developmental edits if she sees it. And she did a little bit of that with the Pen Name Project, like just a couple things here and there. So I'm hoping that if she spots anything, she will call that out to me. So that would be really fantastic. The other thing that I have to figure out with Twisting Fates is there are two particular elements of the story of the characters that I'm not sure if I need to hire like a sensitivity reader or anything like that, just because I want to make sure my T's are crossed, my I's are dotted, because and I mean, this isn't a super spoilery thing because obviously it's going to be discussed. So one of the characters is dealing with, you know, food related struggles in terms of like disordered eating kind of thing. So, and I have some unfortunate experience with that. So I have my kind of take on some of that, but I don't want I want to make sure that it's still done in a tasteful way, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to get some thoughts on that. And my editor might have some notes on that, because she's, again, very good about that. If she sees something that she thinks might be like an issue or something like that, she kind of flags it and is like, hey, you might want to double check this just to make sure. She did it with, I can't remember what it was in the Pen Name Project, but she did it with that. And I was like, thank you, because I didn't even see that. So having extra pair of eyes is always super, super beneficial. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to. No, we're not going across the cat highway again. Stop it with the cat highway. Get out of here. Now I'm starting to think you just want to pay the tax. Is that what it is? You just want to pay the tax? Anyway, indie publishing is really strange because, again, you're doing everything yourself. You're paying for everything. Excuse me. You're paying for everything yourself and that kind of thing. And I want to make sure, even though this is an indie published book, I'm self-publishing it myself, I still want to make sure that it is a good book. I don't want to just publish trash just because I can, because that's not what I want. I want to publish things that are good, that are respectful, that tell a good story. I want to make sure that it is a good, solid book. So I want to figure out if I'm going to leave her comments of like things that I know I'm kind of like, or like I want to make sure are done well. And if she does call those out and says, yeah, I think you probably want to just double check with a sensitivity reader on these, then I'll hire a sensitivity reader and go from there kind of thing. So I have at least two things in there that I just want to make 100% sure are done respectfully. So that is kind of where I'm at with all of that. I feel really bad with these because it's like I just keep rambling and rambling and rambling, but this is a process. So there's so much that goes into publishing a book that you don't even necessarily think of right off the bat when you're like, it's just everybody and their mother is always like, oh, just write the book and everything else is super duper easy. And they are lying through their teeth because it is not that easy and it can be expensive. And if you don't have the finances to do this kind of thing, especially if you're trying to do indie publishing like I am, like that is a choice that I made. If I wanted to do traditional publishing, that's a whole other route you have to go. And that's a whole other, can of worms you have to open and deal with. But like, indie publishing, especially when you're trying to establish yourself like I am, like I'm still early on in, the indie scene or whatnot. This is the second book that I'll be publishing, that kind of, and, as of right this moment, pen name project isn't out just yet. It is out in the next 4 days. So woohoo, we have that coming up in real time at least. So I have that to look forward to, but like, I'm still establishing myself, so to speak. So like the sales are going to come eventually. It's not going to be immediate. I know most of my author friends, like real talk with you guys on author stuff, real talk. A lot of my indie author friends didn't really see a significant like financial outlook on things until books 5, 6, that kind of thing. So that's just kind of the way things are. And that's why I'm still working full time, and I still want to work full time because I want to make sure that I can fund all of this stuff and still, fund my life and all that kind of stuff. So sorry, long tangent. I know this whole thing was just for me to tell you where I'm at this very moment. So that is where I'm at this very moment. I am going to start editing the last 5 chapters and get the light line edits of Twisting Fates done so that I can send it off to my editor at the start of next week. So that is where I'm at. So let us continue on with the rest of the video.
Good morning, my lovelies. It is now officially technically Monday morning, which means, as of right now, drum roll please, Twisting Fates is now with my editor. Yay! So, I was able to finish off the edits for Twisting Fates last night. There are still probably maybe 1 or 2 things I want to correct, but I want to get my editor's feedback in terms of like story stuff. So, it's not 100% finished yet, but it is now sent off to my editor, who said she's probably going to start looking at it on, I think, Tuesday this week. Yeah, I think Tuesday. So we did it. We've officially gotten Twisting Fates to my editor, so I'm very happy about that. I'm exhausted, obviously, but we'll talk more about like what I'm going to be doing this coming up week, because again, this is the end of this week for you guys. So I thought I would kind of do just like a general wrap up of how the week has gone, because I have focused mostly on getting this draft done and updated and ready to go to my editor. So the focus this week has been on Twisting Fates and getting that ready to go. So there hasn't really been a whole ton else that I really did towards some of the other stuff. I will say there one thing that I did do, and I don't really have a section for it because I didn't really film too terribly much about it, but I'll show you guys some of it. So I didn't do any sculpting this week, but I did do something else that was creative and that helped fill my creative well a little bit, because I was talking to some author friends of mine and we were talking about like events and stuff like that. And as of right now, I will be doing an author event as an author in I think it's February of next year. I'll talk more about that when the date gets closer and I have more details on that. But I do have an event for that eventually will be coming up, and I had hoped to get a couple more books out before I started doing events, but this one just happened to pop up and they asked me if I would come. So I was, obviously I'm not going to say no to that, but that aside, I was talking to these author friends and I was talking about like what things I should be bringing and that kind of thing. And they were all talking about like stickers and that kind of thing. And I don't have any stickers for my book, or at least at the time I didn't have for my book. So I was like, okay, well, either I figure out how to do it myself, because I like to draw. I like to do that thing. I'm not very good at it, but I have been practicing and, having fun with it occasionally and stuff like that. So I created a couple of stickers that I can show you. I use Procreate on my tablet here for creating these. So I'll just kind of show you a general glimpse of what these look like. And, you can let me know what you think, I guess. I have them all on Canva. So I created them on Procreate and like designed them and all that kind of stuff. I use kind of a combination of Canva and Procreate to kind of like mix media it a little bit in terms. So like for the text and that kind of thing, I'm really bad at like handwriting and making the handwriting looking really pretty. So I used Canva fonts to kind of create the text of it. And then I basically drew based off of that, if that makes sense. Like you'll get what I mean when I show you here in a second, but I use a little bit of that to do that. And I'm not a very good drawer, so you could probably tell from some of them, especially one of them, which I'm really thrilled at how it turned out. But again, I am not a drawer, to say the least, but I had a lot of fun making these. So let me preface this as well. These are all related to the pen name project, which is the first book that I have. And eventually I'll have ones for like Twisting Fates and Project DDD and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to have like a little selection of each. But this first one is the tagline of the book, which is when romance needs a little research. So I thought that was really cute. I really love that tagline, and I really wanted to have like a little movie ticket, because there is a bookmark that I had made where if you've gotten the bookmark, you've seen it's like a little movie ticket and that kind of thing. So I wanted to create like a little sticker that shows that as well. I have this one, which is a little sticker of like a stack of books that have like romance tropes on the side of it. And the top one has like, you can see the pen name project on it. I wanted to do this one because I was like, it would be really cute if I had like all of the tropes of some of the books that I'm working on or have now published in like the trope thing. So Friends to Lovers, Fake Dating, Forced Proximity, and Slow Burn all apply to Pen Name Project. Grumpy and Sunshine is Project DDD. Rivals to Lovers is Twisting Fates. And you can kind of apply Slow Burn, you can kind of apply a couple of them to one another. But I wanted to have one where it was like, all the tropes I've written or am writing, if that makes sense. So that's another sticker. I have one that's a quote from the book. I'll put up just a general thing for it. I'm not thrilled with this one because I haven't really done any designing with it. I like the quote, and it's kind of like a little leading to a fun moment kind of thing. So there's that one. This one I love just because I thought this was fun. So give me a book and call me a good girl. Again, I'm a book girly. And then these are three, which again, over here somewhere, there's three of these, which are basically a variation of You Had Me At, and then a trope from the book. So I had bookmarks of these made as well. So I wanted to have something that kind of paired with this, that went with like my branding colors. So You Had Me at Slow Burn, You Had Me at Friends to Lovers, You Had Me at Fake Dating. And I really like how these turned out, because I was like, it would be so cute if I had them like on a book that like, you had me at this book kind of thing. So this one I love this quote because especially out of context, it makes me laugh every time I read it. Are we including psychopaths in your research? Are we hoping for a surprise? Is a quote from the book. I love that quote, especially out of context. It's so funny to me. I don't know why. So I have that quote with like the pen name project kind of bordering like a little heart around it. So, and then the last one that I have right now, and I finished this one last night, and again, kind of simplistic. Again, the way it looks now is so much better than when I was actually like drawing it on here, because I cleaned it up as much as I could. But Golden Retriever men do it better, because Charlie is a Golden Retriever in the pen name project. So I really wanted to do something with that for a sticker. So I made that sticker. So there you go. So those are the stickers that I have been working on throughout the week. And that has been my way of like filling my creative well, because it was something I had to do anyway, but I do enjoy doing that kind of stuff and just creating fun things like that. Like that makes me happy. It brings me joy, so to speak. So I really had a good time doing those. So that was my replacement for sculpting this week. So all in all, I think this week went pretty well. We had a lot of things going on, obviously, with, Pen Name Project is coming out, which as of, obviously, I'm recording this on Monday because I couldn't film on Sunday night. As of right now of filming this, Pen Name Project comes out for me in 2 days. So that is super exciting. Obviously for you guys, because of how I have these videos scheduled, it'll already be out. But for me, I'm not quite there yet. So it's been a lot of preparing for the pen name release, and then getting Twisting Fates ready to go, which we've got some things I think story-wise I might want to tweak. I know I'm saying this as I've already sent this to my editor, but like she basically will do a couple, like some minor developmental edits if she sees it, kind of thing. So I'm probably going to point that out to her to see if that's something she picks up on as well. And if so, then I can fix it and that kind of thing. But all that to say, Twisting Fates is now with my editor. So we're really happy about that, which means this coming up week, we'll discuss what we're going to do. But for now, thank you so much for joining me. I am so happy that you guys are still here with me on this journey. It has been such a roller coaster, honestly, within the past just couple of weeks of doing this little challenge or whatnot. And I like this challenge. I do. It's been, again, a roller coaster trying to figure out how to make it work for me and that kind of thing, because I think long haul stuff I'm just not that great with, because again, I work full time, I do other things. So we're figuring that out. We're making it work for us. And yeah, so thank you for joining me. If you can, I would love if you like, comment, subscribed, all of that jazz. And in the meantime, I will see you guys again in the next video. Have a good one.